Welcome to the third episode of the Tim and Andy Show. Right? Third?
Third.
Yeah, third. Well, sort of fourth.
Technically fourth, but it's the third under that moniker.
Right, exactly. The third episode of the Tim and Andy Show here on Retrovolve.com, and we are actually broadcasting live. Well, you won't be hearing it live, but we're recording it live.
If you're recording it live, it's not live.
Yeah, I suppose that was kind of stupid. Anyways, but we are on site at the Chatterbox Pub in Minneapolis.
Beautiful Minneapolis.
Yes, exactly. And
I am so tired of the fluffy white bullshit.
Exactly.
Cold Minneapolis.
Yeah, I was about to say, on a cold, snowy Minnesota evening. But yeah, we are here live at the Chatterbox Pub. We obviously thank them for hosting us tonight. As usual, I am your host, Andy Ryerson, and with me is Tim Evans.
Hello. And
a special surprise guest this week, courtesy, I guess you could say, of geekparty.com, and also a contributor to Retrovolve, is Alcoholic Luigi.
I am Alcoholic Luigi. That is who I am.
That is who he is. And we are here this week to debate the, I guess, how would you put it?
The 32-bit giants.
Yes, the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64. Me and Tim have both taken a side, which we'll get into a little bit later. But we first want to kind of talk about this week. Start off the show by talking about some stuff that we have on the site this week. I know you put out a few things.
Yeah, I had a couple. The Transformers video that I did earlier, and the Monster World 4 Wonder Boy 6 playthrough review.
Yeah, at this location. What? No, it just broke.
That's all I've done this week.
So we're doing a new one.
Yeah, I posted a few things, just a couple random things. I posted a thing about a contest that took place to win a Sega Dreamcast by swimming through a pool of mashed potatoes. It's an article I found from the old official Sega Dreamcast.
Now, let's be fair. Maybe some of them just really wanted to swim in mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
That's where I would have gone.
Right?
Mashed potatoes are delicious.
Right?
Yeah, the thing that stuck out to me was it happened so late in the Dreamcast life cycle. I couldn't find an exact date for when it occurred, but it was published in the last edition of the Dreamcast magazine, which was published in March of 2001.
That's so late.
Yeah, so
like it was for the system.
Yeah, it's like congratulations, you win a dead console, and it came with free games for life, which I don't think there were any games made after that point.
In America,
I
think there were still games being made in Japan, maybe even like a few years ago.
Yeah, there might even still be being games made.
The game came out in 2013, but it might have been an indie project. I'm not sure.
Right. I don't know. I just thought the timing of it was curious.
Yeah.
Of course, wasn't the Dreamcast essentially dead before it came out?
Yeah, it was dead. It was dead on arrival. I mean. Yeah.
More or less, but I guess that's a topic for another show. Other than that, I know. Both Josh and Mandy had a few things on the site. They're actually off in the distance over here. Say hi.
Hi.
They've decided they don't want to be heard on microphone because they're embarrassed to be seen in public with me.
Yeah.
I mean, after the noodle incident,
which I guess is a fair point. They don't want to be associated with our show.
Yeah, right. They just don't want to be any more associated with Alcoholic Luigi. They're like, the nude pictures on the Geek Party site are enough. We don't need him taking his pants off anymore. And let's be honest, I probably will at some point.
Yeah.
It's a good thing this isn't being radio recorded because he's naked now.
Yeah.
It's true.
In public, at a bar, That's what we do here at Retro.
I spend every day of my life fighting the Pantsriarchy.
The what?
The Pantsriarchy. I will not let the Pantsriarchy win.
What?
Yes, I have struck the host silent.
Yeah, I don't. Well, that's it for the Tim and Andy show this week. You can
check us out on iTunes.
I officially quit Retrovolve and any parties associated with. No, but we are here.
We already did our show on Geeky Show.
Yeah, that's right. We've already sunk to the lowest point that we could possibly sink to. And
Oh, no, you haven't.
We're gonna find a new low.
we'll find it here at some point today. And the reason we are here today is me and Tim are going to, like I'd mentioned earlier, debate which is more superior, the Sony PlayStation or the Nintendo 64.
It's gonna be less of a debate, more of a massacre.
You know, I will say, when I was younger, I had an N64, and it was the greatest doorstop ever. It was just a fantastic doorstopper.
It's very good for that.
And I think that's to its benefit, really.
It's heavy.
Well, as you can clearly have discerned by now that I will be defending the Nintendo 64, and Tim has chosen the PlayStation and will apparently be getting plenty of assistance from Luigi. So I'm already in a handicapped match, if you will.
You were when you chose the N64.
Yeah.
That's true. N64 is like taking a handicap for yourself.
Nintendo did that to you.
It's like, I want to lose from the get-go. How can I make that happen?
Oh, I know. Cartridges.
Yeah.
Well, with that,
That's not holy name.
You don't.
Believe it or not, I actually have that as a positive on my list.
Yeah, I can see that. That would need to be a positive.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Well, you'll talk about it.
Yeah, I will, and I guess we'll have that lead right into my first point. We're gonna kind of segment this like we do our top 10s, where we're each kind of gonna bring up a point that we think is a benefit of the system and defend it, and then the other will provide a rebuttal for that,
Yeah.
most likely.
You go first. I'm curious.
So, given, there is definitely a reason why the industry switched over to the compact disc as a medium for releasing games, and it was lower production cost, had more storage, and I get that. But at the end of the day, I feel cartridges are the better medium overall, and I feel cartridges should be the form of that games should be released on today. But that is an argument for another time.
Why?
No, that's an argument for right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
I guess it's
cartridges.
because here's the
DHL
thing.
cartridges.
Well, because here's the thing. When they originally switched over from cartridges to CDs, it was because CDs had a much larger capacity for memory. That's not the case now.
Per cost.
Yes, exactly. And given it still is more expensive to produce like a flash drive than it is a compact disc, but not that much more.
No.
But I mean, look at the 3DS. It comes in cartridge format. It's like a flash-based.
True. And they look real good.
Yeah, and I didn't have a PS3 until about a year ago, and after having owned a PS3 and having to sit through like an hour and a half of installation and other crap to even start playing my games, because a CD/Blu-ray drive is so slow compared to the data transfer rate of a cartridge. And given that cartridges can hold so much more data now, given the technological advances since 1996, I feel that if we were to reinstitute cartridges as the main medium for games, it would just be so much better. There'd be no loading times, and for obviously, I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to take a drink of water for the working man.
There's
The Pantsriarchy makes that happen to us, yes.
But
against the Pantsriarchy.
one thing I'm concerned about too, and we've seen this as these original CD-based consoles have aged, they don't last. It's moving parts, and moving parts break. With cartridge solid-state data storage, they're not going to break. There's no moving parts, and they'll last longer. My Atari 2600 from 1977 works. My Xbox 360, 6 years old, doesn't work.
Yeah, that's and discs get scratched.
Exactly. I just think it's more practical for retro purposes, which I realize the companies don't care about. They're all about making money now.
But
They
this
don't.
is retrovault.com.
Right. But I've derived so much enjoyment from being able to go back and play games that are 20 and 30 years old. But it's going to be really hard 30 years from now to play an Xbox 360 game.
It is.
So
if the machine even works still, because I mean, try to find a Jaguar CD right now that works, or a Philips CDI that works. Granted,
Yeah.
those
Why would you want to find either of those things that work?
But
that is a fair
what
point.
Purpose?
But let's say you wanted to play the Flowers of Robert Mapplethorpe right now on your CD.
That's not real.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
The Flowers of Mapplethorpe.
Yeah, it's just it's not really a game.
It's just all the images of paintings that the dude did.
So it's like a desktop wallpaper collection.
Kinda.
Yeah.
With music.
So like Myst.
But
I like that.
But if you wanted to do that, you'd have to find a working CDI, and good luck finding a working CDI. So I mean, like that is true. It's going to be hard to find a working Xbox 360 in 2000.
It's hard to find a working Xbox 360 in 2014.
Now, let's be honest. You won't have to find a working Xbox 360 in 5 years because Microsoft will happily charge you a $50 a month fee and a $5 download fee to buy it digital.
True.
That's
then
true.
you have to buy it again. So if you
yes, that's exactly what they want.
That's the thing. I don't want to buy. I invested, X amount of dollars in this game originally to get it. It should still be able to work down the road. I hate this whole thing of like, you bought this game 10 years ago, now pay us again for it.
But don't you understand that GameStop is the devil?
I do understand that, actually.
I still have my copy of Phantasy Star 2 for the Genesis that I bought as a kid, and it still works.
Right.
It still has my file on it,
And to be fair, too, kind of transcending past the argument of the distribution medium, there are, like the ColecoVision, for instance. It's really hard to find a working ColecoVision, but that's just because the hardware was shitty, and that's gonna be a problem no matter what. These companies want to make the cheapest hardware that's gonna work for 5-ish years, and after that they don't care.
But at the same time, going back to retro games, you're always going to be able to play your Super Nintendo games. And in this debate, you're always going to... Those Nintendo 64 cartridges are like a hard, sturdy lot.
Right.
They're going to last.
And thank you for bringing it back around to the original argument. We kind of strayed off the path there, which is fine.
All 3 of the games worth having, they'll still work.
What? You don't think Mischief Makers is a title worth owning?
You don't think
No, I do not.
3D?
Iggy's Wrecking Balls? Come on.
Snowboard Kids 2?
Hey, Snowboard Kids is... Thank you! Yes! Jesus.
Bandit chiming in. Hey, me too.
Wait, okay, repeat that.
That's the first game I bought for the
Exactly.
N64.
Snowboard Kids was worthy enough to own that she bought an entire system to
The first game
play
or the
that
second?
game.
I'm not sure that's what she said.
But that's what I'm saying she said, so don't worry about it.
Fair enough.
Did anybody buy a PlayStation to play Cool Borders?
Yes. I just don't know them. Somebody out there has that much brain damage.
Fair enough.
No, I bought a PlayStation to play Wild Arms.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't play Wild Arms until after I had played.
Okay, it's my turn, guys.
Oh, I apologize.
We'll get to Wild Arm Hearts, whatever it is later. Back to Snowboard Kids. No. But to kind of defend my point of cartridges being the superior format in this generation, given the CDs gave us a lot of great things. We wouldn't have had Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, or any of those Metal Gear Solid without them. I'm not discrediting the contributions that Medium gave to the industry then, but I still feel like cartridges were the better format even then, because like I said, no loading times. For 2, I mean, this wasn't for every game, but every big game released on the 64 had internal memory built into the cartridge. You didn't need a memory card.
The big ones, yeah.
Right, and given not every card did, there are a ton of games that didn't have it. So, you can probably take them out. It doesn't translate to every single cartridge.
Bomberman 64, I think you needed a cartridge.
Yeah, and there were a lot of great games that you did need a memory card for, but given the fact that the flash memory that the PlayStation did utilize for its memory cards was so limited, you barely had any room on those memory cards.
I have 7 of them that I still have from when the system was new. And I filled them all up because they were so small.
Yeah.
And you needed that for every game.
Yeah.
Every game you wanted to save on, you needed a memory card save.
Exactly. And I will say too, like, I had a PlayStation when I was growing up too. I didn't just own a 64. I loved the PlayStation, so I'm not trying to crap on it at all.
The reason I needed that many memory cards is because there was that many good games for the system, though.
Yeah, and there were plenty of good games for the 64, and they all came with their own memory. Because now I still have my original Ocarina of Time save file, because it's on the cartridge. I didn't need to worry about deleting it to make space for some other game I had rented. I don't have my Final Fantasy saves from when I was a kid. Those are gone forever.
But
the memories are gone forever.
How many saves can you keep on that cartridge? Because
3.
What if you wanted 5 different Zelda saves?
Buy another cartridge.
I got 5 different saves for Symphony of the Night.
Why?
Because I like it. I don't want to lose my old save, but I want to just go through it again.
What is the point of... Actually, I'm going to order another beer here.
Can I get a Senate?
I think I'm just going to do another Bud Light.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had to think.
Why do you keep ordering these beers and make me respect you less as a human being?
Because I like playing the underdog, and it just adds more to my...
Bud Light isn't the underdog. You have to like be scrappy and have something worthwhile.
This is the kind of beer I drink at
How
home,
many times a week are you supposed to have red meat? What's the word?
and I drink it in public
Yeah.
too.
I
started on a high.
I thought I could respect you both, and it turns out I
Well, I
can't.
was on the spot. I'm all heated talking about the system, and she came and...
Yes, you were talking about save files for a game that you're going to want to play from the beginning at some point anyways.
Yes, exactly, and...
Then you'll have to delete your save files, rendering your point entirely null and void.
Whereas when I have a 100% completion file on Symphony of the Night.
Well, then why do you need to keep it?
Because then you can play as Richter.
Because my name is Ballsack, and it's a memory when I was slightly more juvenile than I am now. Now it's just Ball.
I was gonna, you've made your juvenile you are. You're just more efficient with it.
It's not as anymore.
That's what I'm in the process of
Yeah.
He's graduated from ball sacks to balls.
I couldn't write out as. I'm so
But is it
immature.
balls with an S or a Z?
That's a Z.
Oh,
Of course.
Yeah.
Like I was a server for a long time.
This is a man who drinks Bud Light. What do you expect?
Oh man.
I got so
Oh.
all right. Well, I don't really have anything else on that point.
Well, my follow-up point to that, to why the PlayStation is superior, also ties into the fact that it had optical media, it adopted optical media, is that because it had optical media, it attracted more third-party developers. And so, therefore, the PlayStation has far more third-party support than Nintendo ever had.
Do you want more water?
I would. That would be great.
You're like, what happened to that child's meal?
So they had a lot more third-party support than Nintendo ever got, because they had the medium that was going forward from cartridges.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a step that the industry did need to take at the time. I won't discredit that. And like you said, it did attract a lot of third parties.
And Nintendo was originally going to do it with the PlayStation. It was going to be the Nintendo PlayStation.
Right, and I guess we should kind of touch on that a little bit for maybe people that aren't. I think it's pretty well documented at this point, but
The whole thing, Nintendo was going to build a CD add-on for their Super Nintendo, and they were put the rights out to do it with Philips and with Sony. And Philips went off and made their own system and had some Nintendo franchises they had some limited use of.
Okay.
And then also...
And completely butchered them.
Well, yeah, they did, but at the same time, Sony did the same thing, and Nintendo decided that the Sega CD had failed too hard, so they were like, no, optical media is not the way to go, and so Sony went off and made their own system, the PlayStation. So at one point it was going to be the Nintendo PlayStation, and instead Sony just went,
imagine.
We'll just make the PlayStation. Just imagine how much better the N64 would have been.
If it had been the Nintendo PlayStation.
Yeah.
We might have gotten some more RPGs on the system.
Although I do think at this point, knowing Sony, they would have come up with another system, but it would be something different.
yeah. Well, I definitely do think having Sony get into the industry as a console manufacturer was beneficial to the
Of
industry
course.
as a whole. I won't argue that. I think
More competition makes more talent.
exactly, and I think the industry was in dire need of that at that time because Sega was kind of
Dying.
Yeah, and they just Like the Saturn was such a flop.
The Saturn was a flop. The Dreamcast,
which is kind of too bad. The Saturn was. The problem with Dreamcast was it was. Yeah,
way too
no, the Dreamcast was the Saturn was a solid system. I think it just came too little, too late.
Exactly.
They built this system to fight against the Super Nintendo, and it was like, yes, this system will destroy the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Well, what about the PlayStation? This system will destroy the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. Well, that was the problem with the Dreamcast was it came after all the massive failures of like the 32X and the CD, add-ons.
Right.
Which I know Josh is a big fan of.
The
Sega
30?
CD. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the Sega CD. I love my Sega CD. I'm a big fan of the 32X as well.
Although I will say, back on the topic of the memories and such, it is kind of annoying to have to buy the game and then buy the memory cards as well. And then if you lose the memory cards, you lose your save.
Right.
I have a running thing on Geek Party about having lost my PS2 memory card.
Yeah.
And so, I have a bunch of articles about playing these games over from scratch and what my opinion is. And that's been interesting, but it really sucked to lose all my save games.
Right.
And that didn't happen with cartridges because the game was the save file.
My best friend, he lost his big mega PS2 memory card twice. It was twice lost, and 2 times he had to go back and play all of his games again to get 100% files on all of them. He's that kind of person who just has to have 100% file on all of his role-playing games. So he had to go back and play a whole library of games to get those saves back. Whereas with the cartridges, if you didn't lose the cartridge, you didn't lose the save.
Yeah.
It's all yours, all one thing.
Yeah.
Until the internal batteries get out.
And
So that takes a long time. I mean, I still got my Zelda Gold cartridge from a kid, and it's still got its CR2032 in there.
Sure.
Going strong. Still got
that is a problem with them too. Yeah. When the batteries go out, it's kind of game over at that point, and that is kind of a weakness of doing save systems that way.
It only really comes to be a problem though with games like Pokemon, where the battery dries out and you don't get to save your time anymore.
Right.
The save game is still there though. So as long as you don't care about time, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And
However,
as much as I kind of made fun of you for your 100% the save file that you keep, I did the same thing. I have 110% on Spyro the Dragon on my PlayStation memory card. Until I die, I want that in my tux pocket when I'm dead, when they bury me. I want that in there because I'm so proud of doing that.
It's a great game.
Yeah.
Too. Spyro's amazing.
So as much as I made fun of you, I totally get that sentiment of wanting to keep record of that achievement on there forever.
My third point about PlayStation versus N64 is that the PlayStation brought in a whole group of people that wouldn't have bought it otherwise with Final Fantasy VII. And that having the PlayStation having FF7 on it was like the beginning of the beginning of creepy fanboys, but it was also the beginning of having RPG players on their system who are diehard fans.
Right.
They're the kind of people who will go out and buy the game day one every time. And Final Fantasy VII did that because it not only was a great game on its own, but it was the first RPG that looked good in 3D.
Yeah.
Now, no offense to Wild Arms. Wild Arms did look good, but it didn't look as good.
No, Wild Arms did not look as good as Final Fantasy VII.
And Final Fantasy VII was all 3D.
Right. I'm not even going to pretend that Wild Arms looked as good as Final Fantasy VII because I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
And
But Wild Arms did come first.
It did.
yeah.
And Shadow Man
And it was a better game than Final Fantasy VII.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
What?
Wild
Really?
Arms was, yeah.
It was
Final Fantasy VII was a great game. I liked it better when it was called Final Fantasy VI. Meanwhile, Wild Arms was actually an original game with an original story and an interesting plots and such. I mean, I love Final Fantasy VII. I'm just saying they pretty much rehashed the same story from Final Fantasy VI.
Not really, but I can't. The only thing I can see that Wild Arms is better at is their dungeons. Their dungeons have strategy to them and puzzle solving.
Well, I've never played Wild Arms, so I have no context.
You haven't played Wild Arms?
No.
You need to play Wild Arms. Get Wild Arms Ultra Code F, the remake.
No,
the remake is great.
Don't get it. No, it sucks.
Fuck him.
It sucks ass.
He's stupid.
I have a PS1 disc of Wild Arms if you want to borrow it.
Okay.
The remake actually does do a lot of things a lot
What is
better.
it for?
The remake is for the PS2.
Okay.
It's called Ultra Code F.
And they ruined it.
No, they didn't. It's great. Your co-host is an idiot.
Well, we've established that.
That's true.
Don't
Okay,
worry.
fair enough.
He's taking off?
Yeah.
Oh,
That means I'm going to make you two give me a ride home.
works for me.
All right. Luckily, I don't live too far from here.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, everybody listening on the podcast, say goodbye to Josh and Mandy.
They're leaving.
Thank you for your contributions.
Bye, Josh and Mandy.
Waving doesn't make much noise, you guys.
Did you do it right in front of the microphone? Maybe a little bit.
Thanks for backing me up on Wild Arms. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Good seeing you guys. Good meeting you guys. Well, I've met you. I've met Mandy before, but
Seen you forever.
for a long time, yeah. Better part of
Plus, Ultra Code F made Emma, Zed, and Jane playable characters, which they should have been in the first
They
place.
didn't need to be. So.
They should have been in the first place.
Definitely not Zed.
Yeah, definitely Zed.
No.
Zed was great.
He was an enemy.
He was an enemy that ended up having like that heart of gold at the end. You did go back to that
True.
one town.
That's true. I take that back. That's true.
Yeah, Zed.
And he was a ninja.
Andy was a ninja. No, Ultra Code F, like, took a fantastic game and filled, like, all the bits where you're going, man, they should have done this, and that would be really great. Ultra Code F didn't.
Yeah.
They brought it up to current gen at the time.
Yes, it was
I
fantastic.
will say this: it's really hard to go back and play the original PS1 Wild Arms because the graphics have not aged.
They haven't.
The out of battle is fine; it's beautiful sprites, but the in battle graphics are like the bare minimum, Alone in the Dark level of like
And
ugliness.
And that is one thing I feel Final Fantasy VII has aged very well, and I feel like it, which is odd because you wouldn't think it did, but I still like the graphics from Final Fantasy VII. Whereas it feels like a lot of the N64 graphics didn't age very well.
I actually feel the opposite way.
You think they have aged well?
No, I don't think they necessarily aged well. I just think the PlayStations, more often than not, their graphics I feel have not aged as well.
True. I will
The
say
N64's graphics, they were similar in quality, but they were much smoother, which I think, I don't know, just to me it looks better now. Given,
they're more colorful.
yeah, but that's not necessarily that's just game design basically,
true.
but I think we had the
AAA titles like Mario
Right.
and like Zelda. You can still go back to the upgrade time on the N64 and it looks good.
We had this
course, why
discussion
would
the
you?
other day, though. Like, really, no games from this era really translate well. Period. Like, nobody's ever going to go back and make a game from this era in this style, like they do with 16-bit era games. Like, nobody's going to do like N64 PlayStation style remake.
Because they're ugly.
Yeah, they are.
That's
ugly.
true.
They were just trying to figure out how 3D works.
Exactly,
And it was kind of the in-between time.
yeah, which I think is kind of endearing in a way. I think. It's,
Although by the time like Final Fantasy IX came out for the PlayStation, they kind of had that stuff down.
That's
yeah.
true.
Like Final Fantasy IX was a beautiful game.
Yeah.
But then again, Final Fantasy IX doesn't have its own retro identity in that style. Like
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VI looks very distinct, but so does 7. But no one's gonna make a game that looks like 7. 9, they could remake 9, but it would still look kind of the same, just cleaner.
Yeah, that's true.
So it doesn't really have an identity in its graphics. But you are right. By the era of like Chrono Cross and Final Fantasy IX, they had that shit down.
Right.
It looked like
And
legit.
meanwhile, I feel like the N64 never quite got the graphics looking as beautiful.
Every game looked pretty ugly.
Yeah.
Every game looked kind of the same level of polygon.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, at least to me, it can vary from game to game, but N64 more often than not had less frame rate issues just because I think, like I mentioned earlier, just the format, the better data transfer rate with the cartridge as opposed to
It's already there.
the
It's
CD.
in the library.
Right, but I mean, all the best games on either system really didn't struggle with it too much, so it's not something I'm going to make a huge argument about, but I think the N64 does slightly edge the PlayStation in terms of just its overall frame rate capabilities. But I mean, either way, they're not going to be great either way or offensively bad either way. It mostly depends on the developer's capability with the hardware.
One thing that Nintendo did that I feel was a mistake back then is they had a policy at the time of if this game isn't 3D, we're not going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the PlayStation had games that were 2D and fine. But Nintendo was like, it has to be 3D or we're not making it. So every game on the N64 has a 3D element to it. And I think that was not a good idea. Because they could have, because if you look at games that have very little of them, like Ogre Battle 64 has mostly drawn sprites. It looks good. If they had more sprite games on that system, they would have looked really good.
Yeah. That actually is a really good point. One that I never really thought about.
That much. They had, they had sprites, but they had them as part of 3D environments.
Right, and I mean, it makes sense in a way. Like they wanted to seem like this was a new thing and whole new generation of gaming. Yeah, and I get that stance to a certain
point. I just think they were too strict on it.
I completely agree with that. That's not really something I thought of before. That's a really good point. I don't know.
I think we should talk about the controllers now, though.
Yeah, and this is actually a subject that I wasn't going to argue either way because, well, there are aspects. The one I kind of want to defend on the 64 is that it was the first to have an analog joystick.
True.
I mean, the PlayStation did incorporate it eventually, but at launch it was just the D-pad.
It was a big deal for the N64 when it had an analog stick. It was like they've got analog.
And to be,
I actually still feel like there shouldn't be analog sticks.
Just period?
Just period.
Oh,
I still don't like analog sticks.
I don't either, actually.
You know, I feel like
I don't feel connected.
Right. The D-pad, there's a certain rhythm to gaming.
It's more precise, certainly.
Right. And, you know, with the joystick, like, because I'll be straight up, I have ADHD. Being very precise about stuff is not easy for me.
Yeah.
So with the analog stick where it just easily goes anywhere, I'm like,
well, and the N64 had the analog stick, but one downside to it was being the first, it was also one of the worst.
No, I completely agree with that.
It wore out really
the PlayStations, when they finally incorporated it, a million times better.
Because they had already taken Nintendo's example and just been like, let's just make it better.
Right, but if you can find a Nintendo 64 controller today that just doesn't wobble all over the place without even moving it, they don't exist.
I took my N64 controllers and actually sacrificed 2 GameCube controllers for both my N64 controllers, and I took the stick out of the GameCube controllers and I wired it up to the inside of and they work really good.
Well, I mean, especially with like games like Mario Party that just had you murder the stick.
Or Smash Brothers, which is how I ruined all my controllers.
Exactly. Yeah,
my Wavebirds went down the toilet because of that game.
I think it is important. I mean, regardless of how you feel about the analog stick, I would argue either way. I think it was overall a good thing, but I can see a point to. There definitely is situations where a good, solid D-pad is definitely way more beneficial to gameplay.
N64 had a D-pad, just never used it.
Right.
Yeah. It was like the wrestling games. That was like the only time it was used.
But it had a nice D-pad too. It had the CS D-pad.
It had a great D-pad. Yeah. I mean that and like the Sega Saturn D-pad are probably 2 of my favorites.
Even though the N64 didn't use the D-pad much, it was a better D-pad than PlayStation's D-pad, which was pretty bad.
It
was disconnected into 4 pieces.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I don't think it was a horrible D-pad.
It wasn't horrible,
but there's definitely worse, like the ones on any of the Xbox consoles.
Oh, good God.
Especially the original Xbox controller, where it was just like this weird.
No, any of them. They're all bad.
Oh, they're all bad.
They're all terrible.
Or the one they tried a few years ago, where it's like you can like push it down and like twist it, and it'll like pop out of the controller. It's really weird and work like
what?
Yeah. It was
the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It was horrible, but
that's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so I think that the PlayStation controller is important because it was a standard setter.
It really was.
Everything after that, they copied the PlayStation.
No, everything
controller.
to this day has been a model of the DualShock.
No one's copied the N64 controller because it
Thank God.
Weird.
Get right.
Yeah.
Let's have Neptune's Trident. as a controller.
Right. Yeah, I as much as I love the 64 and it's my duty in this podcast to defend it, I think the controller was horrible.
But it was very comfortable if you held it right.
It was, and like I said,
I was going to say that PlayStation controller was more ergonomic, but it's not. The
yeah.
64 controller actually fit your hand.
Neither of them are particularly ergonomic, which they finally fixed with the PS4. I think the PS4 controller is like one of the best feeling game controllers, but they finally the original DualShock.
I disagree. I think the most comfortable controller to ever hold is the GameCube controller.
Can I get the dozen?
Sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that
The
too. I
GameCube
do.
controller is just so smooth and feels so good. Everything is right in your fingers. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know why they have kind of the Xbox 360 pretty ripped it off pretty hard.
Well, they are re-releasing the GameCube controller for Smash Brothers.
Well, they re-released it on the Wii.
Yeah.
With a really
Because
long-
nobody liked motion controls.
Yeah, because motion controls were.
Thank God that
starting to
died, by the way.
Well,
You know, I appreciated that they tried.
Yeah, exactly. And there
Well,
are certain instances where it did work.
Right, but overall it didn't work, but I appreciate that they tried.
Nintendo has always been the lead innovator in that stuff.
Yeah.
You look back, like they tried motion controls in the 90s with the Power Glove, and that was a mistake.
It's so
But
bad.
they brought it back.
Yeah.
I love the Power Glove.
Yeah.
I actually, for people who are listening to the podcast who don't know, I am a professional wrestler as well, and my gimmick is like a gamer geek gimmick. So I go out playing my ocarina as my entrance music, and as a foreign object, I totally use the Power Glove.
Is there somewhere like on YouTube where we can find?
Yes, absolutely. If you look up on YouTube, Ty Cooper versus Albano is probably the best one to check.
I saw that one.
Because that's the one I used the Power Glove in, and I don't. But yeah, so I use the Power Glove as a foreign object because why wouldn't you?
Why? Clearly, yeah.
Right.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
It's like the nerdy William Regal. Power
I
of the Punch.
do, but most of it is a bunch of political rants. And so if you're not down for hearing really angry political rants, probably you shouldn't look up my YouTube channel.
What is it?
But otherwise,
Just a
if you look up Banshee46, you'll find my YouTube stuff.
Banshee 46.
Yes.
And I will actually embed the video of Ty Cooper versus Albano below this on Reddit.
It's pretty epic.
Yeah, and dude is just more popular than he has any right to be. He's this overweight white Midwesterner whose gimmick is that he's a luchador.
Well, and his name is Bathrooms.
Right. And I'm like, it's so over the top that I can't be offended, even though I am Mexican.
Are you?
Yeah, I am.
Oh.
Yeah, that always surprises people.
Do you have
I
any?
don't know why it surprises me. It shouldn't. The mustache.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and
Only Mexicans can grow facial hair.
Well, with that much like feel to it.
That might be true.
Yeah.
I can grow facial. It just doesn't connect.
Yeah. Mine just. I have the Norwegian, just patchy, kind of thin. It's sort of there, but you know.
Have either of you watched the Rageaholic on YouTube?
I recognize the
Razor
name.
Fist. He's just an angry guy but he's got good points. He's very articulated.
How does that have anything to do with facial hair? Is what I'm wondering.
Because he was reviewing a set of movies called Death Wish, starring Charles Bronson.
Brosnan, just like Pierce Bronson,
Yeah.
Brosnan's brother.
But he was like, he's talking about, because Charles Bronson's mustache doesn't connect in the middle.
No.
And his line was, your mustache doesn't connect because your balls have dropped. His mustache doesn't connect because it's scared too. such a good line.
That is a good line.
Yeah, I approve of that line.
All right, well, anyways, bringing it back around to the
To the actual
Oh
topic.
yeah, I don't even. Where were we at?
We
this
lost.
We were talking about motion control.
We're talking about
And the
control.
Power Glove
Which
tried
has
that.
everything to do with N64 versus PlayStation.
Yeah, right, yes.
Clearly.
So, the last thing I wanted to mention was that the PlayStation was out first. PlayStation came out before the N64. and
So
it had-
therefore, the Fairchild Channel F is better than the PlayStation.
No,
Yeah, I don't feel like
don't
that's
know.
even a point.
No, I think it's a good point because it encourages people to buy the system because there's already games out for it. Whereas when the N64 came out, there was very few games to choose from. If you were at that point going to buy a PlayStation, you already have a lot of games to pick from.
Well, yes, but
So
we're talking about which system was better now when all the games are already out.
PlayStation.
Well,
I'm a role-playing gamer, and with role-playing games, like, you can't go wrong with the PlayStation.
oh yeah,
There's uncountable role-playing games.
but there was Quest 64, which
Which is very unfortunate.
yeah. Okay,
That was I still spent like $40 or $50 on that game, and it'll never come back. I'm never getting that money back.
yeah. I'm sorry. That's really
But it did have
unfortunate.
it did have Ogre Battle 64, which is excellent.
Yeah.
It still holds up as a good game in the series.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, RPG gamers there's not much on the 64 for you. It's,
Not really, no.
I mean, overall, both game libraries I feel are both incredibly strong. Obviously, the PlayStation's much deeper, much more diverse, has a lot more that came out for it. I mean, I remember.
Right, they're both incredibly strong. It's just that one was objectively better.
Yeah, the Nintendo 64. Thank you.
No.
I think, obviously, all the really truly great games that came out for the 64 were all either first party or Rare titles, who at that point was exclusively working for Nintendo.
Were they?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, third party support for the system was very, very minimum, and yeah, it's the pool of truly, truly great 64 games is pretty limited, but I think the great games that do exist for the system are just so phenomenally good and so memorable to this day. I think they stand out far more than the 60 or the PlayStation.
There was only 5 of them.
Okay, which ones?
Star Fox.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you Mario because I'm nice.
Mario's good.
See, I'm not even a big fan of that game.
Mario
so-
still stands up.
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time.
Oh, yeah.
The Donkey Kong game.
No. That game wasn't very good.
Yes, it
No,
was.
here's the thing. That game is the worst.
That game was awesome.
It's so bad.
You're both stupid.
Okay, I gotta preface that by saying that I worked in Toys R Us when that game came out, and I worked right by the machine we had going for it all the time.
Okay,
You
so
hear that
that's
rap in the beginning a million times.
that's fair.
It's so bad.
That's fair. Okay, you
So-
have a legitimate reason to hate
It's like
that.
here's an 80-hour game where all you do is collect bananas.
Just talking about it actually.
And here's this banana here, but you can't pick it up because you're not the right monkey.
I have to seek therapy now because of that.
That's fair. And the 5th one is going to be Conker's Bad Fur.
Oh,
Yeah.
glorious. That's
So,
one.
and that was it.
It's so good that got under the
Also,
censorship rate on it.
Right.
GoldenEye,
Gold Mines.
which today doesn't stand
I don't
out
like it, but at the
terribly
time-
well, but at the time was a huge
See,
deal.
I never liked shooters. That's the thing.
But for what it did for the industry, it was pretty
Right.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I'm not a shooter fan either,
I'll give you GoldenEye.
and
So that's 6.
Slash Perfect Dark. Both kind of go in the same.
I'll even be nice and say that's 7.
Perfect Dark, yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
so
you
that's
could throw in
7.
Majora's Mask in there. I'm not terribly familiar with the game. I
I
didn't play
would
it
throw
much,
that by
but
anyone.
but there are a lot of people that
I
really
know,
love
people really love that
I
game.
mean,
I'm
even
just
some
being-
minor ones like Wave Race was really good. I mean,
No, it wasn't.
there were.
It was a launch title, and it was probably the best launch title other than Mario.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was an immediate launch title, but it was.
Was it? I thought it was.
Well, I think the only
So
original.
I'm thinking of Pilot Wing.
So at
Yeah.
best, you've got eight games.
Well,
I could name 8 fantastic PlayStation games without even trying.
You gotta mention Ogre Battle 64, even though if you have
Okay,
it's
so
a
9.
really good game.
So that's 9.
Banjo Kazooie,
Banjo-Kazooie was good,
Okay, so that's 10.
but I don't necessarily...
Banjo Tooie.
Banjo-Tooie.
I'm kind of reaching here.
No, there was a game called, help me out with this. It
If
was,
you can't remember the name, it wasn't that great.
yeah, good point. But it was like a male and a female and a dog, and they were like
Whoa.
space adventurers, and it was a platformer like Mario or whatever, but it was well done.
But if you can't remember the name, it wasn't that great.
This is not. I don't need. And a dog. I don't.
A man and a woman and a dog and a midget and a donkey.
Walk into a bar.
Yeah,
Oh man!
there's a bad
So
joke there somewhere.
that takes me back. So I was actually part of this, where a midget, a pro wrestler, a cross-dresser, two Jews walk into a bar, and the blonde white woman wonders how she got into this joke. That's not a joke. That's something that actually happened to me one night.
Which role were you taking?
Just say this.
I was a cross-dresser.
This sounds like the tale from an independent pro wrestling scene, certainly.
No, it wasn't actually. It was just me and some friends going out to karaoke one night.
Karaoke makes it even better.
Yeah, right.
I can.
You know, my fiance and my best friend's husband are both Jewish. I was dressed in my very nice dress and I had makeup on. I looked very pretty.
Why? Why were you?
Because sometimes I wear dresses and put on makeup.
You were a princess at the time.
I was a princess at the time. I'm gender fluid. I'm just as likely to show up dressed in drag as not. The only reason I'm not wearing a skirt today is because it's too cold.
It's too cold for it, yeah.
Fair enough. Well,
That kind of... Okay, well...
Right, so we were talking about how there were only 10 good games on the N64.
well, you'd brought up I had brought up GoldenEye. Oh, Super Smash Brothers, by the way. You gotta throw that in.
Okay, so 11.
But one of the big things I think the 64 did better is that it had built-in 4-player functionality. Given you could do 4 players on the PlayStation,
You needed a peripheral.
but you need a peripheral. I didn't know anybody that had it, and if you did had it, very few games
It
supported it.
didn't work very good.
Yeah, and in that way, it was like the ultimate party system. Like,
Very true.
and
Yeah, okay.
I was thinking of that earlier today, like... N64 had 4
Like-
players out of the box, man.
like-
That's
What-
great. That is finally a legitimate point
Yes!
in favor for the N64.
let's see, it took, how far are we into this? It took nearly 50 minutes, but I finally got there.
Finally got a legitimate 1-point favor.
Luigi approved.
A Luigi approved point.
But I think that really was important to the appeal of the system. I mean, like, this is something you could have your friends over, and I mean, nobody was bringing their friends over to play Siphon Filter, you know?
No.
I did. I actually legitimately did. My friends and I got together to play Siphon Filter just because we thought it was hilarious to taser a guy to
All right,
death.
well, I'm editing that out of the podcast, so my point is just proven.
I think the only PlayStation game I ever had friends over to play was Tekken.
That is a good game. Tekken 2, I like.
Or this isn't a 2-player game, but I know I had my friends over when I got Ace Combat 2, and I wanted them to see how awesome it was.
Played Bushido Blade 2 with my friends a lot.
Bushido Blade 2 was awesome.
Bushido Blade 2 was great.
The first game is pretty good, but it doesn't hold up as well as the second game.
See, I never played the first game. The second game was great. See, there's we just named 10 PlayStation games just out of nowhere.
I think 10 is an exaggeration, but...
You're right, it was like 12, just without even trying.
Well,
Mine would mostly be role-playing games. That's the thing, is like, if you're not into role-playing games,
yeah.
and if you're not into role-playing games and you're not into sports games, there's not much for you on the PlayStation.
Right,
really.
and
Right, if you're not into role-playing games,
Well,
you're not
I-
into sports games, why are you playing games?
True.
but I mean, that's the thing with me too. I enjoy role-playing games, but it's not one of my preferred genres. I don't play a ton of them, so
But you like sports games.
I do.
And PlayStation turn.
Yeah, but so did the 64 though.
Not as many.
Yeah, but I mean, all the major ones, all the EA Sports games, the Blitz titles,
Blitz is awesome.
all that.
I don't know if
You can't really argue either way for those.
PlayStation have Blitz?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, they pretty much all had the same sports games, aside from Sony had their own division of sports games that they did at the time, but they were the same as EA more or less.
But most importantly, the really good wrestling games were on the PlayStation.
That is so untrue.
That is totally true.
That is
totally
complete
true.
BS.
The PlayStation,
Oh.
the N64 wrestling games all suck.
No mercy.
Yeah. No Mercy was horrible.
Wasn't there a SmackDown?
My brain's about to melt.
No, there wasn't. The SmackDown
Given-
games were all on the PlayStation.
Given I do
Those were
like the
good.
SmackDown games, but they don't even hold a candle to WrestleMania
They totally
2000. No Mercy. It was so in depth, so better
WrestleMania
mimicked the
2000
actual
was really good.
flow of a real wrestling match.
It so did not.
SmackDown was like, oh, here, deliver your finisher twice, he'll get right back up and hit you with a.
WrestleMania 2000 was excellent.
Yeah,
I
it
would
was-
say that.
It was fun to play with friends.
Yeah.
But the good games were the SmackDown.
No, you're
games,
remembering
which
this
came on
all
the
wrong.
PlayStation.
You've
I
got
am
these
totally
completely
not.
backwards in your mind.
I totally have not.
The N64 was definitely
given, I like both each system's wrestling games for what I'm very passionate about wrestling games. I love wrestling games, and they're all good in their own ways. But I think, objectively speaking, N64s were a mile better.
See, this just means we have to get together and play the N64 wrestling game.
I think we just
like on camera or something.
Do you have an N64?
Yeah.
And get like an actual pro wrestler's opinion.
That's actually a good point. We'll table this discussion for another time, and we'll do we can even branch this off to another podcast episode of strictly wrestling games.
We could do that.
That sounds like a great idea.
That's a good idea.
Wrestling games with the pro wrestler.
You see what happens when you have Alcoholic Luigi around? It's great.
Magic is what
right,
happens.
it's magic.
I'm gonna get edged out as a host.
You really are.
Yes,
I'm better than you are. That's just how it goes.
I'm clearly not of a pro wrestling build, therefore have not ever actually wrestled. But I'm a pretty big wrestling fan, so I think this would be a very interesting way to look at these
I was
games.
up until about 2001. That's when I stopped.
That was a good time to get out of it,
But
to
I
be
was
honest.
really
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
In the late 80s through the late 90s,
Yeah.
I was big into it. Especially the late 80s when I was a kid. I couldn't have been a bigger Hulkamaniac at the time.
Oh, I still am, brother.
See, I never liked Hulk Hogan. That's a lie. I liked Hulk Hogan up until a Royal Rumble, where it was supposed to be every man for themselves. And
yeah, I know
Tugboat,
exactly what you're talking about.
Tugboat, took a swing at Hogan, and for some reason, Tugboat was now the bad guy.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, this was every man for
Yeah.
himself. He didn't break the rules.
That's the whole
Right,
story
why
of
is he
the
a
Royal
bad guy
Rumble.
now?
Yeah. Exactly.
Because I liked Tugboat better than I liked Hulk Hogan. Which is something that you will never hear again,
I was gonna
ever.
say, I've never heard that.
I don't think that's something anyone ever says.
Yeah.
But I like
Man,
Tugboat.
Tugboat
better.
should have gone over Hulk
Right.
in the Royal Rumble.
Tugboat, or at the very least, he shouldn't have been a bad guy just because he took a swing at Hogan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Hogan's not untouchable. I mean, come on.
You're right.
Well, back then he basically
He's
was.
not
Yeah.
John Cena. He's
Yeah.
gonna lose a match here and there.
Yeah.
You know,
Hey.
you know what? I will say this about John Cena. John Cena has one of the most respectful stories about sleeping with a groupie I have ever heard. So that's saying something.
That's something. Can Hogan say that? Probably not.
Probably not.
Well,
Can Hogan say he has the most respectful anything? Probably not.
not really.
Definitely not the most respectable movie career. That belongs
Hey,
Hey,
you
Mr.
watch your
Nanny was a masterpiece.
Yeah,
Suburban Commando.
what's Santa with muscles?
Right.
He belongs in the Criterion
Yeah, but
collection.
at the same
We
time,
have gotten so far away from N64
What
with
is that?
PlayStation.
Dwayne Johnson has the best wrestling movie career, though, I think. With the Tooth Fairy. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I don't know. What was some of the other ones? There's
Scorpion King.
yeah,
good.
Scorpion or Walking Tall. Yeah, I'd say
Walking Tall was actually pretty
it was. It
decent.
was a good movie.
He's a pretty good actor.
He is.
He's definitely a better actor than Hulk Hogan.
Hey, well, that's not hard.
That's a small bar to jump.
Right.
What do you say? Thunder in Paradise was a great TV show.
Three Ninjas. What was it? Showdown on High Noon on Mega Mountain.
Yeah.
The last Three Ninjas movie. Oh my god. Anyway, video games.
Yeah.
Right.
There was
Something that had
we kind
nothing
of touched upon everything that I kind of wanted to cover.
Yeah, same here.
It was not nearly as organized as I intended it, but I think for good reason. I think.
It's at a bar.
Yeah.
It's at a bar, and I'm part of it.
Yeah.
So it was.
It's a win-win for
I would,
everybody.
I would say a few more things about the N64, but there are children present, and I'm legally not allowed to say those things.
Fair enough.
So I won't.
There's one thing it's the last interesting talking point. I don't think it's necessarily a an advantage or a disadvantage either way. Just some of the weird, I guess, like we did kind of touch on this, but the peripherals for Nintendo is known to release, and I think some of them for the 64 were kind of cool. I mean, the RAM expansion.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, it's not something a lot of people. And it
The
wasn't,
games that you really needed it for, it came with.
yeah, it was a nice way to kind of expand the system.
Like the Donkey Kong game, which was awesome.
And Majora's
It did
Mask.
look really nice. I'll give it that.
And
It looked
Majora's
beautiful.
Mask.
Yeah, and I think Perfect Dark used it for a lot of it. And there,
That's where I
like,
got mine. Perfect Dark.
Rogue Squadron used it. I mean, there are a lot of really good games that used it. And
True.
And the transfer pack was another one that I remember using because you could take the Pokemon from your Game Boy game and battle them on Pokemon Stadium for the 64, which was just the coolest thing as a kid.
That was pretty cool.
I know this is
Yeah.
against my side of the argument, but in Japan, the 64 had the 64 DD drive.
Yep, I was actually going to bring that up.
That had some cool stuff.
Yeah, and it was just a little more. It's a.
Yeah, but
It was going to come out here, it just never did.
Nintendo has always been really good about their peripherals. Like, you know, they really just throw a bunch of crap against the wall and see what sticks. And like, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
'Cause,
they're
like,
trying new things.
Right, you
Nintendo's
never
also-
know until you try it.
One thing Nintendo's been extremely generous with in almost every console they've brought out has been backwards compatibility.
Right. I'm just waiting for the Wii U Rob. I think it's coming.
Does the Wii U put Wii games?
Yes, it does. Yeah,
That's
it's
excellent.
fully backwards
And the
compatible.
Wii plays GameCube games.
Yeah,
The GameCube didn't play anything, but that was because it was only played GBA games with an adapter.
And I guess the Nintendo 64 is kind of the odd one out with not being backwards compatible with anything. But you could play your Pokemon cart with the
But
transfer
then again,
pack.
PlayStation didn't have anything.
But you could also do that
backwards
with the Super Game Boy.
Right, exactly.
I saw on Imager somebody they mutilated a Super Game Boy in order to make a cartridge, Super NES cartridge of Pokemon Blue.
Oh yeah.
And
Josh
like,
wanted me to write about that.
right, and I was like,
And
wow,
then I just didn't.
put a lot of work into doing something you could already do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now he's got a cart of the game.
Pokemon Blue.
Okay.
You have to really love Pokemon to do that.
Yeah.
You have to really love Pokemon and really love having Super Nintendo cartridges.
Yeah. I would never do that.
I know, yeah. I don't think anyone sane would.
I'm not a big Pokemon fan anyway.
That's because you have no soul.
I can't get into it. I just can't get into it.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, you have no soul.
I am the devil.
Yeah, so the two things we have decisively determined in this podcast is that Hulk Hogan, The Rock was a better actor than Hulk Hogan, and that Tim has no soul. So I think we've really accomplished something here today.
I do too, yes.
all this work was not, for nothing.
Not,
We
not for naught.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, is there anything last minute you could think of that you kind of want to bring up?
Not on this debate, but I will say that I've got a couple of short video / reviews in the works for next week coming up.
Yeah, this would be a good opportunity to kind of tease some stuff we got coming up on the site.
I've got at our sister site Geek Party, I'm doing a series on the last story for the Wii. It doesn't really fit into Retro Vault because it's not retro.
It kind of is.
It's last gen. It's not too
It's
far
kind of in
back.
that purgatory.
But
where-
just talking every week, I'm gonna put one out just talking about why Last Story is better than Final Fantasies.
It's a great game. I can attest to that. So I'm really excited to
I can't
check
stop
that out.
playing it. I was almost late for this just because I was sitting there playing it.
What he's saying is that video games are more important than doing his job.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
Who can't say that?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And then, I've got a few things. I've got a few Neo Geo reviews, video reviews I'll be putting up this week, as well as I picked up an interesting piece of old hardware at a Sabres today. Not necessarily directly intended for video game use, but ties in very well to retro video gaming.
Good tease.
Yes, it's a very unique piece that I guarantee you nobody else has ever
Are you
covered.
going to do an actual video?
I am. I'm going to do a full video review of that, so I'm not going to reveal what it is. You're going to have to come back to retrovolve.com later this week and check that out, as well as anything Tim's got. Anything you want to plug for the week? Geek Party? Anywhere else?
Geek Party as usual, because I write a lot for Geek Party. I also write for Gamertel as Elf Princess, which is just a lot of fun, because I have people on that site commenting as if I'm female, and that gets really entertaining. I am the proof that women are treated differently in the video game industry.
Yeah.
Do you have a Twitter handle?
I do have a Twitter handle. It's at Alcoholic Luigi, so easy for you to find. That's pretty much it. Yeah, check out my YouTube matches, Mr. Entertainment Ty Cooper.
It'll be right below this on the page. You are on Twitter at TimOnGaming.
Yep.
I'm on Twitter at Andy Ryerson. Look it up on the site to spell it. So I think that's all we got for today. So that is this episode of the Tim and Andy special guest, Alcoholic Luigi. I want to give you billing on this one this week. You can find it every week on RetroVolve.com, as well as now, I don't think we talked about this, on the iTunes store finally.
Yep.
We finally got it to work. Is my dumb computer self finally found a way to get it to work. So you can find us there, of course, on RetroVolve.com, and on YouTube you can find the show as well as all the other fun, exciting, great content we have. So thank you so much for joining us this week. We'll be back next week with a new episode. I don't think we've determined what we're going to do it about, but it'll be
awesome.
It'll probably be mediocre, let's be honest. So, all right, thanks again, everybody. Thanks again for the Chatterbox Pub in Minneapolis for hosting us this week. And until when? Until next week, stay classy.